If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. How many times have you heard that? And in the run-up to the healthcare law, how many times did you hear me say that? That if it sounds too good for words, maybe we need to re-examine the words and the math behind all the promises. That if you're going to cover all, including all those with pre-existing conditions, and let them keep their kids on their policies through age 26, well, it's going to cost. After all, common sense and basic math tell you that the more you cover under a policy inevitably means the more you're going to have to pay for that policy. And all of the volume discounts in the world can't erase the reality we know all too well, that the cost of everything goes up, including news just today for the price of drugs we use every day. The Wall Street Journal reporting a sudden surge, ironically triggered maybe by the healthcare law itself, a consolidation wave among key pharmaceutical companies, particularly those buying rival generic drug makers or their much valued drugs. Here's what happens. Big pharmaceuticals buy the rights or the companies outright behind some big drug. For example, Valeant Pharmaceuticals scooping up the rights to a pair of life-saving heart drugs. Now, as soon as the deal was done, the price of those drugs, Nitropras and Israpel, shot up more than 200% and 500% respectively. Valeant telling the Wall Street Journal that nothing nefarious was going on, just an opportunity to maximize value for shareholders. And since 2008, it's become a trend. Branded drug companies since then have shot up 127%, the Journal reports. That is more than 9 times the retail inflation rate over the same period. So it's pretty clear to see that the health care law did nothing to stop this. Now, to the woman who keeps the numbers and knows the books, Betsy McCoy, whether it in fact triggered this. What do you think, Betsy?
Well, they saw their opportunities and they took them, to paraphrase an old Tammany Hall boss. And don't forget, way back in 2008, when this law became an issue, the drug companies were told, you can have a seat at the table or we can eat you for lunch. And they got a seat at the table and a lot of protection. There's nothing in this law that goes after the drug companies.
And nothing to stop mergers and acquisitions and even drug acquisitions that we're now seeing.
And ironically, the big Democrats who are going to be running next time, Hillary Clinton out in Iowa, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, in recent weeks have all started to make a major issue of the price of retail drugs. And they're not stupid. The fact is that at least half of Americans take these drugs. And the Kaiser poll shows that Americans are very sensitive to the price of these drugs because unlike your hospital bill or your doctor bill, a lot of people are actually paying the price of these drugs.
But don't you find for that reason, I'm all for free market, but I'm not for free gouging, particularly when it comes to vital life-saving medicine. Someone's taking a heart medication, the next day it goes up 500%. That to me has clearly a problem. Bastard quality.
And let's be honest, the pharmaceutical companies have the highest pre-tax operating margins of any industry except broadcasting.
Well, I'm okay with the broadcasting.
Right.
But do you think that they not only took advantage of this, but they're ramming it down our throats?
Well, no, I don't. I think there's a complex convergence of issues. Let me raise a couple of them. Many new drugs, just in the last year, hepatitis C drugs, cancer drugs, and others. Secondly, during the first 4 years this law was in effect, medication prices actually increased, not medication prices, medication spending actually increased more slowly than spending on hospitals or doctors. And thirdly, we do see the evidence that spending on new drugs, as costly as they are, actually keeps people out of the hospital and off the operating table.
I understand that, but some of these are existing. They didn't just invent these at a
there are a lot of new ones on the market.
I understand that, but the ones that have been getting a lot of the notoriety of where a company has come in, stepped in, bought the company or bought the drugs, and then the next day raise it.
They seize their opportunities and they take them.
That's what makes them thieving SOBs.
That's right.
And that's what feeds the beast that these guys behave beastly. Now, one of these little worms' excuses were to say, our shareholders are happy. Yeah, but people whose lives you're allegedly trying to save are dying.
They are very unhappy and dying, and you're quite right. And there's going to be a lot of...
I don't know what God you pray to.
There's going to be a lot of demagoguery ahead, and all I'm worried about is
unintended
this.
consequences of
I
a
see
law
Bernie
supposed to meant
Sanders
to do well.
Right, and Elijah's coming say we need to keep the annual increase in drug prices to the inflation rate. Well, maybe they should do that for lawyers' fees too. What I'm looking at is, okay, something needs to be done. It may be more subsidies for people who really need them when they're getting their drugs, because we don't want to kill innovation. We've got to do this very delicately.
But here we're conflating issues. I think the danger with all of this, it alarms me, and is that when everything is status quo, a company comes in, buys another company, or buys drugs that are very popular, it's not rebranding the drug. It's not all of a sudden making the drug more and powerful and adding lecithin to it, like
just like if one cell phone company bought another. The trouble is, what kind of regulating?
And this feeds the argument this health care law was meant to stop.
Well, the fact is, as I pointed out, to get the drug companies to the table, the deal was. Now I think that the politicians are going to go back, and they didn't eat them for lunch, so they're going to make them dessert.
Well, that's a very good analogy. But I'm telling all you drug companies, you got heart conditions, everything else, and you're telling them you are quintupling of a price that could save their lives to pacify a shareholder. You are evil, and I will follow you to the end of the earth.
Watch out for him.
Exactly.